In our galaxy alone, it is estimated that there are around 200 billion stars. This, combined with the trillions of galaxies that exist in the universe, means there is possibly an unprecedented amount of them that exist. Of these stars is something called a red dwarf, or an M-type star. These stars are very dim and very small, having only 0.06 to 0.08 times the mass of the Sun. These stars are said to have very long lifetimes, with the heaviest of them living for tens or hundreds of billions of years, while the most massive of the bunch, or the most smallest of the bunch, existing for around trillions of years, meaning that all the red dwarfs that exist in the universe today are still relatively young in their standards. This is because of convection that occurs in the star, meaning that it's able to utilize all the hydrogen at its disposal. In contrast to other stars like our Sun or a more massive star like Rigel that can only burn hydrogen at its core, thus explaining why these stars are able to live for such a long time. It's estimated that when these stars begin to die, they will glow brighter and burn hotter, becoming blue dwarfs before eventually turning into white dwarfs, one of the final evolutionary stages of a star, aside from a neutron star and a black hole. Since given their low luminosity and small size, and the planet has to orbit extremely close to its star in order for it to be habitable, or to fall in the habitable zone, the area in which temperatures are right for water to be a liquid, and not in a gaseous or solid form. While this may seem good, especially considering we found many exoplanets surrounding red dwarfs, there is a couple problems that arise with this fact. Red dwarfs, especially in their youth, are known to be extremely active, having very powerful flares that can blow up the atmospheres of any planet that it has. Now, granted, this doesn't mean that the planet can regain said atmosphere or build a new one. If the planet is big enough, or if it has volcanic activity, then it's able to rebuild an atmosphere, and in time can eventually have one again. However, this isn't the case for smaller stars. Well, this isn't the case for smaller size. Crap. Forgive me for this. Though this isn't the case for planets. Crap. Sorry, I'm messing up. Though this isn't the case for stars when they're in their youth. For example, given these planets' close proximity to the star, their year lasts as long as their day, as you can see here. And of course, while from this range, a planet around a much bigger star, like let's say bare minimum a K-dwarf star, a world like this would be water-like. Given the star's low luminosity and mass, it's a ball of ice. And this world while also having water, it's on the cusp of being considered ice. Of course, this game isn't as accurate as some like Space Ranger Universe Sandbox 2, but it does give a good idea how worlds around a red dwarf would be like with these temperatures. And of course, this would be an example of a world having to rebuild in the process of rebuilding its atmosphere, thus showing that red dwarfs, once they start calming down, the planets around them would have, well, as I've said before, either a lack of an atmosphere or would be extremely thin ones, either being the remnants of a much larger atmosphere, or the planet slowly rebuilding its atmosphere, meaning it will be extremely thin. If the planet doesn't have any volcanic activity or isn't massive enough, then it has lost its atmosphere completely, leading to a super Mercury of sorts, like this one right here. Now, while this may seem bleak and grim, it is possible for these red dwarfs to host life. Possibly, though the time scales for this to happen then would have to be extremely long, as you have to wait for the star to calm down and for the planet to orbit habitable zone, as well as having the activity on it to rebuild an atmosphere. And this is assuming the planet will still have water in its composition, or will be at a temperature where that water can be liquid. Stars of their on this caliber will fall into, such as Proxima Centauri A, the closest star to our Sun with a planet of its own called Proxima Centauri B, that is said to be tidally locked to its planet. TRAPPIST-1, that has seven rocky worlds around the size of Earth orbiting it, and many, many more that we've discovered. It's likely that these stars will be the last stars that exist in the universe. It will be one among the last ones to even still be alive once we enter the degenerate era, a time in the universe where there's no more material to form stars, and thus every star begins dying off. And that was my short yap session about red dwarfs. Was as much as I can think of. So if you want to hear more about this, make sure to notify me. And of course, have a good day.